this action shoujo is an anime you've gotta check out. Not only does it have action on par with shonen, political intrigue, and gorgeous visuals, but it's also got heart, humor, and some amazing character development. So let's talk about it. For a bit of context, this is a 2014 anime called Yona of the Dawn and follows Yona in a fantasy world based off of ancient Korea. This anime starts off feeling like a fairly normal shoujo. You see, shoujo, which is manga aimed at teenage girls, generally comes with a specific kind of aesthetic and emphasis on emotional connections and often romance. Now, this isn't always the case, like with Natsume's Book of Friends or the extreme case of Hell Girl.
Oh, pitiful shadow lost in the darkness, bringing torment and pain to others. Oh, damned soul wallowing in your sin.
Ugh. But the first episode has a relaxing tone with plenty of jokes. Most of the screen time is dedicated to Yona trying to convince her father, who's the king by the way, to let her marry her cousin, Soo-Won. I said it was based off of ancient Korea, didn't I? Anyways, we get introduced to another handsome guy named Hawk, and it's made clear to us that those three have been best buds since childhood. We also clearly see that Yona is a pampered princess who has had a pretty sheltered life up to this point. In the middle of this, Yona thinks someone was chasing her, but her cousin is here, so I'm sure it's fine. Yeah, Yona's world changes real fast as she discovers that Soo-Won orchestrated a coup to become king to avenge his father. And since she's a witness, well, she has to be taken out. Thankfully, Hawk shows up with his sick weapon that I can't pronounce.
Su-Kwandao.
And the servants sacrificed themselves to let them escape. Side note, I recently watched Soul Eater for the first time and I've discovered that I love anime fights with staff-like weapons. So Yona is in absolute shock as everything she's ever known has crumbled, and stays that way for a while as Hawk takes care of her. Eventually, however, one of the tribes of the kingdom, the Fire Tribe, have them cornered, and Hawk fights them off as well as he can, but there's too many. In that moment, Yona makes a decision that changes everything. She decides to become strong so she can defend others. From there, she convinces Hawk to teach her how to use a bow, and stays up hours by herself practicing to become better. They also go see a clumsy priest who tells them they need to gather the 4 dragons and take his friend Yoon so that they can be stronger and help others. This takes us to a pretty common difference between shoujo and shonen. Shonen, especially action shonen, are generally goal-focused. Get to the One Piece and become the Pirate King, become the #1 hero, that kind of thing. Whereas shoujo, as I mentioned earlier, is more relationship-focused. Help their friends believe in themselves, end up with a boy they like, or discovering who they are. Yona is a pretty cool protagonist because she has a good mix of both. She has a more shonen goal of saving her kingdom and fighting the 4 dragons, but her drive is more in line with other shoujos with discovering herself and helping her friends. She works really hard and her glare strikes fear into her enemies. Yet she's super compassionate and caring, which I think is awesome. While there is plenty of action and romance, the average episode has a much more laid-back and personal tone to it. As the journey progresses, more party members are added, which add a lot to the humor and emotional depth of the show. That's not to say it's not funny before that. Hawk and his blunt comments and his dynamics with Yona alone is a lot of fun to watch. But once party members start joining, you get even better jokes and fun times, with Kaija in particular adding a lot in my opinion. It's not just the party members that add to the charm of the show either. We run into all sorts of interesting and fun characters, ranging from cranky but lovable old ladies to a battle-hungry general. I'll give a particular shout out to Soo-Won and the final dragon added to the party. Soo-Won is an incredibly interesting antagonist. From the outside, he seems like a sweet, innocent, and clumsy guy who couldn't hurt a fly. This is how he appeared to be throughout all of Yona's life, and often appears as he travels his kingdom. But every once in a while, we see the hidden calculation and depth, and it's honestly kind of scary. It makes you wonder what he really thinks and is planning. Sadly, the series was cut short after just 1 season, so we don't see his full nature and intentions, but he's a very intriguing character to watch nonetheless. Zeno, the yellow dragon, was the dragon who got the shortest end of the stick in the series itself. This isn't much of a spoiler, but it takes until the very last episode for us to even meet him and for him to be added to the party. So I didn't get a very good feel of him. But then I watched the OVA. you don't want spoilers for the OVA, you can skip ahead to the next timestamp, but for me, this OVA was peak Yona. Now, everyone in Yona has heartwarming and gut-wrenching backstories, which to me is one of its strongest points, but this OVA really brought it to the next level. It starts off with the party enjoying a night with a drinking contest, which has its fun moments and a decent romance payoff. But before long, Zeno falls asleep and dreams of an epic battle. Not only is it the most brutal Yona has ever been, but we quickly see it's of the original 4 dragons and king and how close they all were. The other 3 dragons are amazing in battle, but the yellow dragon mostly needs to be saved and has no idea what his special ability is. The king seems concerned about the yellow dragon in particular and bans him from fighting. As time moves on, the king dies and the dragons do the best they can for a while for the kingdom. Eventually, however, as the other dragons split up, the yellow dragon realizes the true extent of his power. You see, he understood already that he's got Deadpool levels of recoverability to his injuries and sicknesses, but it goes much deeper than that. He can't age, so eventually all the dragons die and he's left all alone.
こいつったのに待たせすぎだ
He promised to see them before they died, or at the very least to see them in heaven, but he realizes he'll never be able to do either of those. To defend the kingdom, he eventually rides out and takes down an entire army by himself. And is found by a sickly girl. He takes care of her and even falls in love and marries her, but she too eventually dies and leaves him all alone again. It took a character that I honestly had no idea what to think of and immediately made him one of my favorites. It gave me a lot of free run vibes and how it was both breathtakingly beautiful, yet hauntingly emotional, sometimes at the same time. So I highly recommend the OVA after you finish the series. I also quickly have to mention the animation quality and music. I'm convinced if this anime was given a 4K remaster, it would basically look like a new anime. I love the distinct character designs and how they work super well for both serious and comedic moments. I also really appreciate the creativity the art style has, especially with showing us the thoughts of characters on screen and swapping art styles to fit the joke. The music is also really good, and for the most part leans heavily into the ancient Korean inspiration. I found it funny how similar the first ending sounded to Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood's final opening though. So the anime is amazing, with memorable and lovable characters, cool action, and an interesting plot. To me, Yona is a great example of those who are considered weak, outcast, and feared can achieve greatness and become something amazing together. It's a real shame it got cancelled after just 1 season though. I'm sure the manga just keeps getting better from here and we finally get the payoff with Yona and Hawk, and likely just keeps getting better. But in any case, Yona of the Dawn truly is a must-see, and will stick with me for a while, especially with its amazing characters and action. And on that note, if you enjoyed this video, subscribing would be huge. I'm trying to hit 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year, so any help would be great. Also, let me know who your favorite Yona of the Dawn character is, or what anime you'd like me to cover next in the comments. And with that, thanks for watching. Yeah,